Happy Friday. Happy Buckeye Friday, everybody. Welcome into the best damn pond in the land. I'm your host, Chad Stryker. With me, as always, co host Dan Dibjack. Dan, what's up, man? How are we?
I'm good, man. I have no idea what we're going to talk about today. It's been a slow week.
Oh,
Not much
yeah,
has
it's been
happened.
so slow.
It's
Nothing's
spring.
going
It's
on.
spring break. I mean, to be
It was
expected. There's
supposed
not.
to be slow.
Yeah, spring break to be expected. Nothing to really, nothing happened. It's going to happen. No, man, I'm good. I do have, before I forget, I got two shout outs. I guess technically two and a half or three. I got my Buckeye sweater on today.
Nice.
Our men's hockey team upset the number 2 seed Wisconsin Badgers in the Big Ten tournament. So they're playing the 1 seed tomorrow,
Ooh,
Michigan State, in the semis.
Spartan.
And then our women's team unfortunately got swept by Wisconsin to end the regular season, but they still have the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. And they will be playing, it looks like, Minnesota Duluth tomorrow as well
All right.
in the actual NCAA tournament. So
Are those on Big Ten Network? Do you know?
the men's game is definitely on the Big Ten Network. The girls' game I'd have to check. Um, so maybe.
Maybe.
And then more importantly, I need to give a shout out to my fiance Emily. She's got a birthday this weekend, so she is a lucky leprechaun St. Patrick's Day birthday. So on Sunday,
Happy
so
birthday,
we're gonna
Emily.
get out of town for the weekend and have some downtime and just
Yeah.
chill.
I guess I should probably do that for my wife since her birthday was on Monday.
Oh, you shouted out. You don't remember?
Oh, maybe I did. Yeah. Who knows?
You can edit it in there. You can edit this into that.
I'll cut and paste it. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Morgan's birthday was Monday. We're actually going out tonight to celebrate it. So
Nice.
When you get older, you just kind of celebrate birthdays when you can. So
Yeah.
All right. So the news for our slow week. Tony Alford leaves Ohio State for the cheaters up north. I don't know. Do you want to talk first? Because I still.
There's so much to unpack, right? I mean, it happened obviously in between episodes, so I've got so many different takes in my head from my own and what I've heard. And I mean, listen, here it is. At the end of the day, I'm not concerned about losing Tony Alford. The timing sucks, and then obviously where he's going really sucks.
Yeah,
right.
That's kind of the gist of it, isn't it?
If we found out on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day that was that he was going to be going to USC or Miami or Notre Dame, which he apparently had opportunities to do so, which makes this a little bit juicier than it could have been. Who cares? I mean, if you have to rank our current staff with him on it, he's probably 9th or 10th as far as importance. He is very, very, very well liked, or was, by his players.
Yeah.
So there's that. But when you actually remove the emotion from it and you look at what he's done in his 9 years, I'm not worried about losing him. I mean, we're Ohio State. We're going to replace him. Yeah.
I get it. So there's a lot of information out there. So there's a contrasting thing with me. So the first is, if you go back his 9 years, and if there is I'm going to utilize the injury to Mike Hart heading into J.K. Dobbins' freshman season. We're on the road at Indiana.
Mike Weber.
Yeah. Mike Weber, excuse me. On the road at Indiana, and he had J.K. Dobbins ready to play as a true freshman. Okay. Now, that said, J.K. Dobbins is his one and only recruit that's been drafted, in 9 years. So that he recruited. Now, there's been other guys, drafted, of course, but, there's that contrast. And then I look at like Dallin Hayden as a true freshman. He had to step in and play when nobody thought he was going to, there was no way he was ever going to see the field. And then he has to play, and he had him ready. And I saw a funny joke that, more of his recruits have switched to defense than have been drafted or something like that. So he had Steel Chambers and anyways, I don't really I think it's more about where he went.
Oh yeah,
if I,
100%. It's 100% about where he went.
Yeah, he'd long been rumored to be headed back eventually to Iowa State to be a head coach. From where because he's from there, he's an alum there. So every year there was kind of rumors about that. Anytime there was an open coaching position there, I don't really know what else to say about it. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel obligated that we have to break it down a little bit and spend some time on it, but I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm more excited to talk about what the options are to replace them, but we'll get there. But there's just so many questionable things that when you actually look back on his tenure, like starting Mayan Williams and Master Teague ahead of Trey his freshman year. Granted, I know it's the first game of the year and he's a true freshman, but I don't care. Like, that's one position where if you've got a Herschel Walker or a Bo Jackson of the Hall of Fame, Bo Jackson, College Hall of Fame, Heisman Trophy winner, Bo Jackson, not the current recruit, Bo Jackson. And then, and you mentioned Dallin. Yeah, he had him ready when he needed to be called on, but where was that decision? Who made that the last year? And that's the thing we're never going to know. Like, was that a Ryan Day call? Like, has Tony been hampered by, is Ryan telling him who to put in and when to put in and who to play and not to play? I mean, my understanding is that Ryan, he lets the position coaches say who's going to play and, determine who's going to play and who's earned it. There's just so many questionable things. And when you look at the rankings and the losses on the recruiting trail, and then, I've heard rumblings in the past. It's being talked about a lot more now, and I know why it was never talked about more now, and I'll touch on that in a second. But, the recent, Ryan wasn't happy with him on the recruiting trail. He wasn't apparently bought in on what it takes in this day and age to recruit. So, I don't know. But the biggest piece that came out of this over the last 48 hours that I've heard is that he was apparently the biggest leak in the Woody for the beat. That he was the single biggest source from the existing coaching staff for the beat in the Woody, which tells me a little bit of why, they've been so nice to him over the last 48 hours. Yeah. Who knows if that's true or not. But I'm not worried about it. It's just where he went and the timing of it. I think it's hilarious that people are like, oh, he was a spy and now he's got Chip Kelly's playbook. And it's like, we got 15 years of game film for Chip Kelly's playbook. Like, what? That's just silly. Yeah. But yeah.
I struggle with this a little bit just because of the timing. I think that the timing sucks. I understand, when I see the Michigan people celebrating, and at the same time, I'm like, you guys were the ones that were saying how terrible our running game was recently. And the one thing I'm going to just be straight honest with you. I had like a little bit of a man crush on Master Teague. I thought he was going to, just because of I thought he was going to be like a wrecking crew, man. And so I don't know what happened to him. Obviously, the more I watched film, his vision was highly questionable. If he wasn't in a shotgun or, deep in the backfield. But I really thought that he was going to be like the guy that year. I thought he was going to break away and Trey would maybe be backing him up. And it ended up being Mayan, having a pretty good year that year. But you're right. The losses on the recruiting trail, Mark Fletcher, and the one that just still haunts me to this day, Bijan Robinson. That in and of itself set our program back. Losing Bijan Robinson now we did get Trey. Okay. Mm-hmm. I get it. But Bijan Robinson, that loss, I felt like probably kept us out of a natty. So
yeah, well, did it though? Because
2021.
Ohio State, since JK, and I'm still convinced that a lot of that had to do with other injuries at the time, but Ohio State they're not a feature back program. You know, and a lot of these guys don't want to be featured backs anymore. I mean, look at Q. I mean, Q left Mississippi because he was getting too many carries.
You know, we're all going to have our beliefs. I just felt like that 2021 season, you know, I'm just saying, if you had the elite talent of Bijan Robinson in the backfield, and remember I know we had a lot of injuries, and CJ Stroud, we probably, I know the defense was terrible, but we probably can slow Oregon's offense down by being able to pick up 4 yards with Bijan Robinson, and we win that game. And I'm just saying, man, like there's so much there that I could talk about, but I really liked Bijan Robinson coming out of high school, and obviously he's proven to be, you know, every bit of what everybody thought he would be. So
and I was all over that recruitment at the time. Like I followed it very closely because he went to South Point Catholic High School in Tucson, which is obviously where the U of A is, which was my alma mater. But a couple things there. I got a quick Master Teague story for you. So a guy that I worked with when I moved to Nashville was best friend. His son was best friends with him in high school. They played ball together in high school. And he told me a story at the time of Master being in the 5-foot section of their swimming pool and jumping and landing on his feet on the deck of the pool.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, the kid's a freak, tremendous young man, you know, very strong faith. I did root for him too, you know, but I think that's another example, right? If Master was a featured back, he could have done really, really well just because. Yeah. But he wasn't the guy, you know. Yeah. And then if you look at the last few recruiting cycles, I mean, for crying out loud, we didn't take a running back in 23. No. How does that happen at Ohio State? And we had a need, right? We lost Fletcher, and then this year we lost Lyles. So I'm excited to see who we get to replace him.
Yeah, we had a walk-on, Wiltrell Hartson, but even he's left the program. He came from Massillon. That's the only reason I know that.
Dude, you just impressed the hell out of me for pulling that out. I've never heard that.
Yeah. So, I am I can hit Massillon with a rock, like Joe.
Gotcha.
It's a little further. It's about 20 minutes up the road, but they just won the Ohio State football title for their division, and Hartson was a heck of a high school football player, and so he walked on, and then has since, and I think he left and entered the portal and left. Yeah, he was a heck of a football player. Is a heck of a football player.
It was either the principal from Massillon or Moeller. Which one's the private school?
Moeller.
Yeah, he had a rough trip to Nashville recently. He ended up on a very famous Instagram page that shows mugshots for people. You can imagine what those comments are about. But you want to talk about who the more exciting piece of this?
Go for it.
Who are we looking to for him to replace?
Well,
or to replace him?
Gosh, man, so I jokingly put on our Instagram page and my Facebook page a photo of Eddie George in an Ohio State jacket, and if you guys are old enough to remember Wayne's World, I played the Wayne's World Dreamweaver song with it. Yep. And if you're not old enough, you need to watch Wayne's World just because it'll help you a lot in life. I'm old enough to remember when they, Dana Carvey and them were on Saturday Night Live, and I'm sure you are too. So that was sometimes the best part of my weekend was Wayne's World on SNL. So, but yeah, I don't think. I mean, I know Eddie's gonna go through the interview. You and I've talked. Probably seems more like a pep talk for Pepe Pearson.
Yep, that's the word, right?
Yeah. So I would never rule anything out with Ohio State and money and Eddie George, but there just isn't the rumblings that you normally would hear for something like that.
Yeah.
So, where are you at, man?
I think people, regarding Eddie, I think people really underestimate how entrenched he is in Nashville, right? I live here. He's been here for a long time. And he's very visible in the community. He's incredibly humble with people's time. When he's approached, he I think it's Bucknuts 82. I realized recently lives up here or down here rather, and he runs into him quite a bit. But he apparently made a commitment to Tennessee State that he was going to honor his contract, and he just finished his third season.
All right,
and the word is that he's going to be talking to Ryan, but it's to promote Pepe.
Okay, I'm going to give you another name, and I want you to tell me what you think. Robert, don't call me Dizzy Gillespie.
I mean, he seems to be the leader in the clubhouse right now. Him and DeMarco Murray are the top two guys that I'm hearing the most buzz about. I mean, you look at the thing I like about him, and that's another thing about Alford, man, is like Alford was only recruiting running backs, whereas everybody else on the staff has been cross-recruiting positions, you know?
I thought Alford did some defense. Did he not? Or am I crazy?
I mean, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But that's, something I've heard recently is that's something that he was kind of adamant about, or he just kind of did, whether he was supposed to or not. I don't know if we're ever going to truly understand the dynamic there because A, Ryan plays things close to the vest, and B, he apparently was tight with the beat. But when you look at Gillespie's, I'm going to have a hard time saying that. Maybe we shouldn't hire him because I can't. I'm going to get butchered saying his name this whole time. Robert. He, his recruiting chops are solid. When you look at who he's been responsible for bringing into Alabama and previous stops that he's been, he was Keon Keeley's primary recruiter at Bama. Now, you could get a little cynical and say, was he? And, it was Bama. It was Saban. But, he got credit as the primary. He's Richard Young, who we lost out on. He's really a sexy choice. DeMarco Murray's kind of random. He went to Oklahoma. I don't see how we pull him away, but we are Ohio State. But, Bama's the one school that you probably can't go down to as Ohio State and just, call your shot. But he seems to be the leader in the clubhouse. I've got an out-of-the-box choice that, we can talk about. But what do you – who's your choice?
Yeah. Well, so I remember and I'm sure you did too. I remember Pepe Pearson as a running back at Ohio State, and he was serviceable. I don't think he got drafted. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
So he's probably been coaching a while. And I have a lot of respect for Eddie George as a human and as an individual and a leader. And so if he's putting him forward, there's probably a reason for that. Robert Gillespie is one that, I don't put anything out there on Twitter that I don't actually believe that will happen. And so I had people sending me direct messages last night about why I put their smoke out there, because there is actual smoke for Robert Gillespie. This isn't just making stuff up, and so I don't do that. If you know me, like I don't do eyeballs or cups of coffee unless I have something and I can confirm it. It's not going to come out. I have a good friend who is no longer where he was, but I knew about the Justin Scott signing before it happened, and but I'm not. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to put stuff out there. It's just not the way I do things, and I have very real knowledge that they are very, very interested in Robert Gillespie. Now, I'm gonna leave it at that because things shift rapidly, and if I don't know if the interest is both ways.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's smoke at all. It's been reported by a number of outlets at this point that he's the leader in the clubhouse. One went as far as saying that it's his job to turn down.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing. That's exactly what I heard. That's verbatim what my message said.
Yeah. So obviously, non-Buckeye guys, everybody wants the Buckeye guy. That's the trendy thing to do. And why not? Look at the track record we've got with Tim Walton and Brian Hartline recently. And,
James,
Little Animal is heating up the train a little bit.
Three's is going to do it, man. He's going to be good as long as he can coach him up. He can go get him as long as he can coach him up. So.
Oh yeah. Now there's one other Ohio State name out there that has been mentioned publicly and that I think would be, a good pickup. And that's Scotty Graham. He's currently at Washington. He was at Arizona, and being an Arizona alum, I've paid attention to them, obviously, probably closer than most in Buckeye Nation. They've produced some really, really good running backs, not necessarily NFL caliber running backs, but there are guys that have gotten drafted that are actually playing a little bit in the league, but they just always run the ball really hard and have really, really good performances. So to see him get into the clubhouse and, put that Ohio State logo on and go after it could be interesting. He went up to Washington with Fish rather. But that's interesting. And then the one out of the box that I heard, and I can't remember now who I heard it from, and it's driving me nuts, but I was talking with my brother about it yesterday, but it was one that like raised an eyebrow, and I thought, man, if we can't get the guys that we want, how about JT Barrett? He's an assistant quarterback coach at the Lions. Listen, if there's two positions probably on the football team that you don't need to have necessarily played the position or know the position. It's tight end and running back, right? It's like, okay.
It helps.
It helps, but I mean, there's a lot of examples of people coaching that are successful that have never played the position or,
I get it.
That, but I mean, how would you like to have JT Barrett in the locker room during the Michigan week?
Oh, I'd love to have JT Barrett in the locker room any week.
But I mean, that was something that was just like, it was like, man, I know he wants to get back to Ohio State to coach. I don't think he's made that. He's kind of played it close to the vest, but he hasn't been shy about talking about it. But I don't know. I saw your reaction on your face. You didn't expect me to say that, did you?
No, I didn't. Well, I was looking in the notes on my phone because when JT Barrett graduated, I actually wrote like a letter about JT Barrett because there was like so much back and forth about what his legacy would be as a Buckeye. I can't find it. But I put it out on my Twitter and basically just thanked JT Barrett for like, his knee, his arm, his shoulder, all of the things that he went through, all the hatred he got, he's a true Buckeye. But I was not expecting you to say that. That was not a name that I thought was going to come out of your mouth. I literally thought you were going to say Ezekiel Elliott. So,
I joked about that on Twitter, but that was meant to be nothing but a joke.
Yeah. So I was like, here it comes.
I also said Archie Griffin was close to wanting to probably retire from the admin side of things.
I'm open. I'm open-minded. My brain and my heart are in different places on this because my brain tells me I'd like to have somebody that has a track record of recruiting elite running backs because we've lost out on so many elite running backs. Yeah. So that, that's my struggle. And that's where the Robert Gillespie thing or the DeMarco Murray or some of these other coaches come to mind. Another one was Cadillac Williams.
No. Absolutely not.
Well, no, I'm just saying the name recognition.
Yeah.
As far as, like for me, I want somebody that has recruited elite running backs. And I harken back to what I said about the loss of Bijan Robinson, and Mark Fletcher. So we'll leave it at that. I don't know anything more than what I was told, and what I was told, same as what you're reporting, is that, it's Robert Gillespie, and it's up to him if he's interested, kind of thing. So
yeah, but and I got one more bit on it. You've seen on Twitter, right? The Michigan fans saying, "Oh, Sharon's playing chess and Ryan's playing checkers and blah blah blah." I've got my checkmate post.
Screw Michigan.
Yeah, I've got my checkmate post. Drafted. All I've got to do is add the hire. I mean, it's gonna be a banger. I mean, Ryan hasn't gone wrong yet with his hires. Yeah. In the most recent cycles.
You're right. And I just so you guys know, I just want you guys to know this. I have an entire show written already for the day that the NOA drops on Michigan. And I think Dan and I might even go live.
I think I might take a PTO day that day.
And we might just do like a 5-hour show on how much Michigan sucks and how much they cheated. Oh, so you guys can say what you want about your chess and checkers and peckers and whatever else, but when it comes down to it, when that comes out, man, y'all,
Mm-hmm.
you guys will not be on Twitter. You're going to run and hide just like you did before 2021.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and again, for another time, but that second NOA triggers repeat offender classification.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying this is going to happen, and I almost feel silly even suggesting it because I think it's outrageous. But historically, repeat offenders is when you start hearing the phrase that they know very, very well at SMU.
Oh, yes.
Now, who knows? I mean, with everything else going on there, there's supposed to be an expose coming out here any day regarding everything else that's going on up there in their athletic department.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I can't wait.
Take this with a grain of salt, but so Scoop had reported that they're expanding the investigation.
Yep.
They're not the only ones reporting it now.
No. And say what you want about Scoop, but man, and I know the history there, and this is my disclaimer. You know, I wasn't really tied up in the podcast world until this year, and a lot of it has to do with
it predates you, I know.
Yeah, one of the particular position battles that took place this last year that kind of got me sucked into this, and now I'm glad that I did, obviously. But man, those guys are they seem to have sources outside the Woody that are very, very well connected to college football. That, I mean, a lot of the stuff they've been hitting on, and people will focus on stuff that they don't, but it's pretty damn accurate of late.
Yeah, so there's some chatter, and I'm just going to call it chatter, and I you guys know I'm not going to put stuff out there that I don't believe, and there is some mixed chatter that could come like March 28th, 29th. So we'll see, and that could be the expose too. I don't know. There's supposed to be some news coming out towards the end of the month, so we'll see what that is. But again, you know, sometimes, and I'm going to be honest, sometimes people message me with just straight shit, and I'm like, you have to weed through it. But there's some talk out there that something could come out before the end of the month, and it might just be what you mentioned.
Yeah. But, you know, I tell you what, though, you know, not to tie this back into what we, started the show off with, but man, isn't that it? I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
The first time Alford goes in there and like, you know, like how does that get handled? Right. Like the Velasquez kid coming to Michigan, like if I would duct tape his ass to the wall and tell him to tell us everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
But you know, with him going up there, it's like, and I've heard the rumors like, oh, well, he's going up there because he's going to be the only coach that doesn't have a show cause, and he's going to be able to step into that interim head coach position finally for the first time in 30 years. I mean, there's a reason Tony Alford's never been an OC or a head coach in 30 years of coaching, despite being a really good coach.
Yeah.
Right.
And a really nice guy. So
yeah, absolutely.
He's genuinely a nice guy. So,
and I hope to God that his kid's not catching unnecessary junk, during his last few months of high school, because that's just silly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I met him once and briefly, but he was genuine and nice and looked you in the eye. So I have nothing negative to say other than why Michigan. So, and then the recruiting. So, all right. So I got to ask you, man, and this was a question posed to me on Twitter. And I didn't screenshot it, which I normally do. And I'm usually pretty good at that, but, had a lot going on this week, getting ready to leave for London, as I mentioned. So
London calling. See, eventually we'll be big enough to have a producer and they can do a little London calling plug right there.
Yeah, there we go. Is there really any position battle in the starting lineup? And you and I talked about the offensive line. So I do think there's probably, if you want to call it a position battle, there's probably a figuring out who your guys are on the right side of the offensive line. I don't know that it's like what I would consider a true position battle, but what about you? What do you think? Like, is there one that comes to mind?
No, I mean, we're talking about to start.
Yeah, like just let's go top 3 wide receivers. We know that like they're going to rotate backs. I think there's probably one at defensive tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, one of the defensive tackle spots, I'll be surprised if Ty Hill's not the one lining up there.
Hamilton?
Hamilton, rather. My bad. Next to Tyleek. But don't count out Hero. But, it's such a rotational position. At least it should be. I mean, granted, we're talking about Ohio State and where our defensive ends don't come off the field against Notre Dame. So, I think one of those defensive tackle positions, I think it's fair to say you've got a battle to see who's going to take that first snap. I can't think of anything in the secondary. I mean, there's an awful lot of, I can't get over the disrespect for Iggy. Like, it's almost like he's forgotten. There's a graphic going around social media that's hyping up the secondary of Ohio State, and it lists out 5 or 6 guys, and his name's not on there. He only started the entire season for us last year, and he's got that dog mentality. Now, I know there's that 1 or 2 plays, and usually if we give up 1 or 2 touchdowns in a game, one of them's usually against him, but I'm okay with that. If we're giving up 10 points a game and he gives up 1 play every 3 games, I'm fine with that, but I just love his mentality and his dog and, that he's gotten him.
It's hard because so for me, this is just difficult because you're playing across from an All-American. And so it's easy to get, think about the guy. Let's just do this. I'm just going to do this. Think about the guys that played across from Malcolm Jenkins, Sean Springs, Malik Hooker. They weren't getting mentioned. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's hard. It is. Like, it's a tough place to be. And I think I love Davis Igbinosun. I loved the transfer. I love that he will come up and hit you. He's big. He's long. He's strong.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I feel bad for the kid. But, you also have, and you've brought in, probably like the biggest DB transfer in the transfer portal era. So,
yeah,
it's hard. It's tough.
Listen, he was one of 3 Iron Buckeyes. So he's not getting forgotten. Like, he's not being overlooked in the clubhouse, which is all that really matters. No. My brother, I was talking to my brother yesterday, and he brought up something. I hadn't listened to Donovan Jackson's most recent interview, but he apparently said that the best 5 are going to start on the offensive line, and they'll do whatever they've got to do to figure that out. So that was when I saw this question, I was actually on the phone with him yesterday when you sent these over and went through them with him. And that was my choice. Now, you just said something, though, that kind of changed things a little bit in the sense that you said top 3 receivers. I mean, who are those top 3? I mean, I Carnell and Emeka, right? A lot of people are assuming Brandon Innis, but I mean,
so
there's this kid that's gotten a little bit of hype so far.
Yeah. So I have an impeccable source, and you know this, and I trust this person, and I know what room they're in. So there's going to be a rotation of 4 or 5. So I agree with you. I think everybody's thinking exactly the way you are, and I have been as well. As it's Emeka, Tate, and Ennis. But don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Mech's working in a slot.
I think Mech's future is in the slot.
Yeah. So I wouldn't. Don't discount that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's 5 guys that I know that are really pushing for playing time. That I'm 100% confident in the information I have.
Yeah.
So
please don't tell me one of them is Jaden Ballard.
No, JJ is one of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's the 4th guy, right? I mean, I think those are the top 4 hands down. Who's the 5th?
Well, Ballard. So they are talking about Ballard just for speed, but yeah.
I mean, Ballard's going into what, year 4?
Yeah.
And he's a good kid, and he's
the
an
other
Ohio
one's
kid.
Bryson Rogers, if you're asking. That's
okay.
Okay, so I will give you that. The other one's Bryson Rogers.
Okay. I just lost my train. You've heard me say this before, and I'm going to take this to my grave until I see otherwise. I think Jaden Ballard's just happy to be here.
Yeah.
I think he's an Ohio kid that always wanted to play for Ohio State, and when he's called upon to do something, he's going to do it. But I swear, if I see him field one more punt on the 5-yard line, I'm going to go out onto that field and pull him out of the game myself.
Okay. Yeah. So he's from Massillon as well. So I root for him.
Yeah.
He's from up in my area. So
yeah,
we don't get a ton, we don't get a ton of kids in my area, within the, 3 or 4 county radius that end up playing in Columbus. Most of us end up at, smaller max schools. So,
right. Great kid. I just don't, it just doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah. All right. So we, had a lot on this show. So I had a chance to watch Bucknuts yesterday, and this is kind of going to be our last thing. So Steve Wiltfong, who, love him or hate him, he kind of bugs me a little bit, but it's probably because I don't like 5 minutes before a kid's going to commit, he switches his crystal ball so his percentage is higher. Like, don't be a dick. You're ruining a kid's commitment ceremony, man. Just, if you're watching this, Steve, don't be a dick. Yeah.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say Steve's not watching this yet.
Yeah, probably not. You never know. So he's got 4 crystal balls rolling in for the class of 2025. Fahim Delane, safety, which we've talked about Delane. London Merritt on the defensive line, plays end and tackle, and I guess can stand up too. I watched a little bit of his film yesterday. Jamie French, we've talked about. And then the latest one was Vernell Brown III, a slot receiver. And there's been a lot of hype around that. So I just wanted to mention that. How are you feeling about those 4? Do you feel confident? Do you not feel? I mean,
I feel really. I think out of those 4, if I had to rank them, I would probably say Delane, French, Merritt, Brown as far as confidence level.
Okay.
And that's strictly based on the smoke.
Yeah.
But man, here's the one thing that it's a long time between now and whatever December ridiculously stupid December date that the NCAA is going to choose this year.
It's early. It's a week early. So
it's the week of the conference championships. Freaking morons. I mean, based on the smoke, I think that's it. Man, I would really love to.
That's December 7th. So
I'd love to see TJ Alford. I mean, he's coming in on the 30th. He'll be here on the 27th, which is before his official, which tells me that we're going to get him. If his commitment date is prior to his official, but he's coming here on an unofficial prior to his commitment date, tells me we're going to get him.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he really, really likes Miami. So, it's between us and them. So we'll see. Yeah, I like your ranking. I like your rankings. I would. The only thing I would say is I think it's probably Jamie French and Fahim Delane, like
1A and B,
1A and B, and then the London Merritt thing. Really interesting to me because of the other kids that they're in on. Shanklin. I just found out Cedric Works, who's from Ohio, is going to camp at Ohio State, and that they are really, really interested in him and having.
Still no offer though, right?
He'll get an offer either at camp or in and around that time frame. So I expect Works to be part of that, and I think he wants to play for Ohio State. He wants that Ohio State offer. So. And they're very similar kids. So there's a lot to be played out here, but I like him. I like London Merritt. I think he would, let's take as many as you can get because we are going to be thin after this year. And something that gets missed is that like Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson are in their 3rd year in the program already.
Mm-hmm.
So just putting that out there for everybody.
I think that I'm hoping that people start to realize like, there's this, satisfaction now, gratification now part of society that, I believe is directors on the social media. But, if you peel back the onion, and we talked about this last episode, with the offensive line, most of our offensive line starters, they really didn't start until their 3rd and sometimes 4th year.
Right.
And that used to be the norm, right? It's this 3 and done thing now at elite programs. But when you peel back the onion and you look at it, it's still the exception. The 3 and done is the exception. So I'm not worried about it, but I'm not worried, but I'm concerned that if they don't break through this year, and again, that to me, it's all about rotation, and it freaking has to happen this
year. Yep. I agree with you.
One guy that's not on there, Chad, is that I've seen crystal balls for is, and maybe it didn't come from Wiltfong, but Justin Hill.
Yeah, so these were just the latest ones he mentioned on that podcast. I just dropped them in there just because. Yeah, so there's others for sure. And the class of, Steve Wiltfong went on to say yesterday that Ohio State, given that they have Tavian St. Clair already in the class, is trending towards having a top 2 2025 class again. So we're looking good on the recruiting trail. We just have to put it on the field this fall.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we got the first family of the 25 class who's working hard on the trail for us.
I love the Sanchez's, man. They're great. They are some great people.
I just can't figure out, is it Mrs. President and the first gentleman, or is it Mr. President and the first lady? I'm going to go with Mrs. President.
Yeah, she's running. She seems to be the one that's most active with that. And
Mr. Sanchez is on there. He's on there quite a bit too, and they're constantly, recruiting and for that matter, Devin is too, man. Just a great. I can't be more impressed with
a great family.
A kid and a family, and they just really seem to get what's important, and
Yep.
But it's a long way till December.
Yeah, willing to give up things in the short term for long term gains.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for listening. As always, we appreciate you guys. Hit that like, subscribe. It helps us a lot with our analytics. We're growing. So we're actually even looking at t-shirts now. So things are moving along.
I saw the design the other day, man. I was really stoked when you sent that. That was so cool.
Yeah. So I've got a local t-shirt company. I'm waiting on the quote back to get it to us. We're going to do it. I just wanted to see if I could use somebody local rather than like custom ink or something.
Absolutely. Like that. So, and I think the idea there is we'll send those out to people that submit questions that we use on the show, at least to start, right?
Yeah, that would be the idea. Yeah.
And then my daughter will wear one 5 days a week to school.
Yeah.
Whether she likes it or not.
Yeah. Well, I think people will dig the back too. It's a little different. So
I love it. I love it.
All right, man. Well, thank you guys for listening. As always, we appreciate you. Dan, last words, man.
Go Bucks, man. Yeah. Practice starts up again next week. Let's do it.
We're getting there. All right. Well, you guys, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. Stay safe out there. Enjoy your weekend. I'll let you know how my flight to London goes. And as always, see you.
London gone.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.